evening, all. That's what I like to see, boys. Almost 1,000 people watching before we even kick a ball. Can't be bad, can it? Evening, Richard. Evening, Danny.
Evening, Paul. Evening, Danny.
Good evening, everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us on this lovely, bloody cold today. I don't know what it's like where you guys. Well, I'm at Danny, but I don't know what it's like where you are, Richard. But it's been freezing down here today, mate. Bloody freezing.
Sitting here in my shorts.
You can't see it.
Well,
You
there
can't
you
see
go.
it. I've
Sitting
got
here
the
in my
fan on,
shorts.
mate.
Oh, mate.
He's always in shorts, isn't he?
Richard, it's not gone 9 o'clock. You'll have to put them away. God, dear.
That was only my legs, Paul. Come on.
Jesus. Oh, dear. I've just lost 700 viewers in 3 seconds.
There we go.
There's been 180 hate crimes recorded. Ofcom on alert.
The Obscene Publications Act has just been reintroduced.
Oh dear. Right, okay. So everyone's gone off to get their sick buckets. So, right. Good evening, everyone. We're just going to waffle away for a couple of minutes because I'll behave, Richard. We haven't even kicked off yet. We've got 2,500 people watching it. There's going to be a lot more by the looks of things. It's going to be a big one tonight. So, first of all, Danny, just a very quick one before we start getting into the big stuff. Did you watch the boxing last night?
Well, it was the night before, actually, weren't it? It was actually the night before. Well, it was
the
early hours of Saturday.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you want to call it boxing, really. Was it? It was a bit of a joke, weren't it? I mean, Tyson was clearly asked not to knock him out. Well, apparently, this is the contract that he signed said that if he knocked him out in the first, if he knocked Paul out in the first round, he got no money at all, and then it was a sliding scale up to the 8th round. All the judges, so if it went to the distance, all had to be approved by Jake Paul. That tells you everything you need to know.
This is all allegedly, I'll take it.
No, allegedly. Well, all right, you got to say everything's allegedly nowadays, isn't you? But apparently, that's what it was. There were 3 judges, all from Texas. They were all approved by Jake Paul. So even if it went the distance, which it did, because Tyson didn't throw, he was biting his glove all night. I don't know whether that was to remind him not to hit. He done that in the end of his career. He done it at the end of his career with Kevin McBride and all that.
He went from ears to gloves, didn't he?
Look, he was shot 20 odd years ago, right? He was one of the best ever fighters ever, but he was shot 20 odd years ago. He was finished. He ain't going to be at nearly 60 years old any better, is he? And the other fella's out to prove something. To be honest with you, mate, I'm not being rude and disrespectful, but I would have put up a better show. Do you know what I mean? It was despicable.
Maybe. Look, I'll tell you what. Why don't we use Jake Paul? If you're watching, you son of a bitch.
Calling him out.
This guy here wants to fight here, and never mind about all the nonsense with Mike Tyson. What about Big Danny?
It's a proper one.
By the way, that's Danny, not me. Danny.
No rules. I thought he was talking about you, Rich. Sorry, mate.
I'd have a go as well, Danny.
Yeah, that's it, mate. You can be in my corner.
3,500 people watching, so I think we can get started. So, right, look, yesterday, first of all, big shout out to Winston Marshall. Brilliant interview with Nigel Farage. Lacked 1 or 2 things for me, if I'm honest, but nonetheless, kudos to him for getting Nigel on and for asking him some good questions. We're going to go through that interview tonight. We're not going to be playing it all because I reckon that you've all probably seen it anyway. If you haven't, nip over and watch it after. But before we start to pick the bones out of the interview, Rich, what was just give us an overall rundown of, a general assessment before we start to pick the bones.
Credit where credit's due. I watched it this morning. There were things I wasn't happy with, but I'm not even sure if I'm going to mention them. But I think overall,
we will.
Okay. Well, I think overall, I think it was good. I'm not sure, but it's the first full podcast I've seen Nigel ever do. The first long form podcast. He might have done others, but I've never seen them. So it's the first one I've seen. It could be the first one he's done. And for that fact, he's obviously been listening to Trump and following Trump's example. I mean, again, going off on a bit of a tangent. I don't know if you've seen Trump's interview with Joe Rogan. Absolutely superb. Absolutely. World class. I mean, he went for 3 hours, I think, with toe to toe with Joe Rogan. It was like the Tyson thing. But I think with Nigel, yes, credit to him. He did well, and he made some very important points, which I'm sure we'll go into as we go through. And you know, he talked about the issues about deportation, that sort of thing. He talked about how Trump and Bannon and people like that have actually built a shadow cabinet way before they got anywhere near power. So he's talking about big issues and important things. Yes, and I was encouraged by that. Other things I wasn't so encouraged by, but on that point, yes, I think he did a good job. And as everyone knows, I'm not a massive Nigel fan, and I'm still skeptical about him. I think as a production, I think Winston Marshall did extremely well. Great scoop for Winston, and I think Farage. Yeah, I mean, and look, Farage is in a very important position now because he is that link man with Donald Trump and Donald Trump's cabinet, which is very, very important for the UK. In fact, it's probably good. Nigel Farage is in a position where he could save the UK a hell of a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Because these numpties that we've got, they're not even running the government, running the country into the ground. You know, Farage will be able to come bring messages from the Trump team to the Labour Party, and if they listen, they do well to listen to him. Because
and I've got to say credit to her as well, because June Slater this has been June's message for months.
Yeah.
And I messaged her earlier on. I said, June, you know what? You're 100% right about what you're saying, but there are still issues that need to be resolved. But hopefully we can get there ultimately. Danny, quick assessment before we go into the individual points.
I'm going to go one step further. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, Trump, you know, he's obviously got a bit of a dislike for the Labour Party, hasn't he? I mean, clearly has got a dislike for him. I mean, he doesn't really want to impose any tariffs, I don't think. I mean, at the moment, that's obviously, you know, up for negotiation. But trade tariffs, I don't think he wants to impose them. But then he ain't going to deal with the Labour Party. That's where Nigel comes in.
Well, I think
it'll be a big peacemaker between the two.
I think what he'll do is I think Trump will punish Labour as much as possible without
in the short term.
Yeah, without putting us to sleep, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, would you want to do trade with them?
To
be fair,
I mean,
you know?
who would want to do trade? Who would want to work with David Lammy, and Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan?
Who paid for the banner to go up when Trump come over? What David Lammy said. Everyone knows what he said. We don't have to go into it.
And Sadiq Khan, who's a massive part of the Labour Party.
Absolutely.
And I mean, Rachel Reeves. This is what I must admit. I did laugh at the way Nigel Farage just dismissed her. He says Rachel Reeves is talking about putting tariffs on American goods.
On America.
It's laughable. I mean, she doesn't. You know, she should be saying we're looking forward to doing business with Donald Trump and the new administration. No, she's going to try and slap tariffs on America.
Yeah. How to break your relationship before it even starts? Do you know?
Do you know something? She comes over to me like she's very, very super inexperienced,
super angry,
well out of her depth.
Super angry.
Apparently, she was an economist in a bank, but it turns out she was probably just a bank clerk.
Yeah. Well, that's the rumor today, anyhow. But look, talking about, I'll tell you what. Let's the first thing I want to cover. Nigel said that he was feeling bullish after Trump's win. He actually said bullish on steroids was what he said, which I think is great. Well done, Nigel, for that. Having said that, I didn't think the interview was particularly bullish. There's one area that I thought, yeah, we'll come to that, but I didn't think that he was overly bullish. But again,
I think he was on America, Paul. I think he was on America. When it come to the UK, he wasn't very bullish. I mean, can I just quickly go in there? I mean, cryptocurrency, some of them have gone up over 100% since Trump's been announced that he's going to be the new president. He's not even in yet. I mean, not in till January. But some of the crypto has gone up 100% because there seems to be a bit of stability. But gold has dipped quite massively. Because it does now seem that, look, when the country's bad, when the economy's bad, gold is very good. It's always a way of marking how good or bad the country's doing or the world is doing.
Yeah, I get that, Dan.
Now Trump's come in, it's dived. Gold's dived.
The average working man has not got a lot of interest in crypto or gold.
I understand that.
Yeah, the
But
average working man is.
it's a way of balancing how the economy is going to feel. When you're talking
Yeah.
about bullish or not bullish, crypto's certainly gone bullish because of Trump, and gold has dipped. So there's obviously a lot of optimism out there of how it's going to be. I'm talking about in general, nothing to do with investing in gold or
Yeah.
crypto, but it just gives you an idea of how the economy is going to work, and it's certainly a positive thing all round, in my opinion.
We'll come to the bigger one later on. Richard, any comments on Nigel saying he was feeling bullish on steroids?
Yeah, again, like you said, I agree with what you're saying there, Paul. He gave it was a very confident interview without
Very relaxed interview, I thought. Yeah.
Listen, the thing is, Farage is a great communicator. My problem is still the lack of substance, Paul. That's it. And I tell you what I thought was very good. He did talk about deportations a lot. And he said, anyone that's illegal, they will be deported. And my goodness, we shouldn't be really having to congratulate him on it. He should have been saying that months ago, but he's saying it now. So he's moving, which is good because he's moving in the right direction.
That do you think that is part of his bullishness after Trump's win? I think so.
Yeah. He's seen Trump. I mean, what Nigel does, it's similar to what he did after the 1st of June. When he saw that mass demo that we put on in Parliament Square, straight away he jumped in straight away. And I don't believe that was an accident. I believe that was very connected. And I think it's the same with what's happened here. And to be fair to Nigel, what he did say on the interview, he said, look, it might not be me, doing this. He said it might not even be reform. So he is flexible, because I think, and this is where, we've been talking a lot about the pledge and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to go into that tonight, but we need that flexibility. So
we do.
Something's not working here, we can move there very quickly, so we can pivot very quickly. And I think that's, I think Nigel acknowledged that, which I thought was encouraging.
I get two lots of messages from my viewers, and they might imagine what a difficult job it is for me to balance the two. I would say that half of my viewers say to me, forget reform, waste of time, this, that, and the other, don't trust Nigel, blah, blah, blah. The other half say, Paul, they're our only chance, stick with it. Give Nigel time, he'll come through. What I do in situations like that is I sit back, I analyse, I take a close look at everything that's going on. We've got another 4.5 years to make our minds up. There's no panic. There's no rush. We're not going to the polls on Monday.
What I think is vitally important, and again, it's going off on a bit of a tangent, is getting everybody that watches this channel registered to vote and ready to vote, so that we don't have a situation where people don't turn out. So if we have millions of people mobilized, and again, it does go back to the pledge, that's what the pledge is about. If we have millions of people mobilized, then we're going to be in a situation where those millions of people can make a difference. And if they all agree with us and we all have the same analysis, we will make a big difference. Now, we need a lot of organization, a lot of planning if we think we're going to actually gain power in the next election. Not because we shouldn't gain power morally and because we will have the population with us, but we've got to bring all these strands together. Let's be totally frank. We've got to
unite. We've got
to get Nigel Farage. We've got to get Tommy Robinson. We've got to get UKIP. We've got to get Reform. We've got to get some of the right-wing conservative people like Suella Braverman, maybe Jenrick if he's genuine. And we've got to find a way of smashing all their heads together, putting them all in a room and making them do a deal. Because that's what Trump's done. Trump has brought very, very diverse people together. And even, Paul, may I say, what we should also be doing is looking for the left-wing people who were against lockdowns, who were very worried about enforced medical mandates and so on and so forth, because that's what Trump's done. Trump has actually made an even broader coalition than he had in 2016. There are quite a lot of ex-Democrats in his cabinet. Tulsi Gabbard, isn't it? And Robert Kennedy Jr. So he's brought a very broad coalition together of people that agree on the specific issues that will save his country. And that's what we need to do for the UK. So you could even talk about the SDP and people like that as well.
I'm just looking here. I've given myself away. I've poured myself an orange juice before I started. It's in one of my granddaughter's cups. Look, what a lemon. Fancy doing that. There you go. It's not about vanity, is it? Not on this show.
No.
Not with them legs, Richard. Anyway, I won't forget. I
Not
won't
with me.
be
It might be about ego with me, but it's not about vanity. That's for sure.
Do you know what, Rich? I won't be able to sleep tonight.
You could have seen something far scarier, mate.
No, thank you.
Like a pug? No.
So
enough pugilism.
Let's talk about. He said, what I would do with those crossing the English Channel today? They're gone. Deport them immediately. What would I do with those crossing the English Channel today? They're gone. Deport immediately. That's a massive change and a big turnaround to what he's been saying in recent weeks since the so-called Farage riots came to. I think that really spooked him.
Yeah,
I think that really got to him.
Yeah,
it really got to him.
Can we add to that deportation? He said, we're not deporting them back to their war-torn country that they've escaped from. We're deporting them back to France, where they've come from.
From where they come from.
Which is right, isn't it?
So that was a big positive, boys, right? I mean, that's the sort of language that we want to hear.
Yeah. Can I come in on that, Paul?
Of course, absolutely.
The other thing I noticed when he was talking, he has obviously been thinking about this deeply, because he said, and it's something that anyone that's, because when I interviewed Nick Tenconi about this, and I asked Nick about this, nobody really has the answer yet. So, okay, you stop the people coming, we start stopping the boats, we start just turning them around, towing them back to France. There you go. It's up to you, Macron, or whoever it is, Marine Le Pen, is it probably by then? Basically you deal with it, right? Now, that's all well and good, but what do you do with the 1.2 million illegals that are at least 1.2 million that are here now? That is the big problem, and that's where you end up with a massive headache, because you're going to have to hire tens of thousands of border force officers and police officers to deal with that situation, and it's going to become the main sort of criminal activity that you're dealing with that black economy, dealing with the illegals that have fled into the black economy, dealing with the illegals that are living in accommodation. Can you imagine Sky News? Here's the thing. You imagine Sky News, the first house raid that goes in, the border force smash a door in, they're dragging people out of the house, the PR situation.
And there's a couple of kids there.
There's exactly. Yeah. You're in an absolute, because the way they'll spin it, this is like Nazi Germany in the 1930s, all that sort of nonsense, and that's that is a big problem. How do you
Richard, look, this is my view on it, right? This is my view. And before we go on to that, let me read a couple of these out. Evening, Paul, Danny, and Richard. Cheers, mate. Richard, you're going to love this one. We got 7,500 people watching across the world. Sufferfish says, Richard, I want to be your mistress.
She's looking well.
That's what happens, mate. That's what happens.
You know what it is? With those eyes, I think she needs glasses.
Boo boo. Cheers. Thank you very much. Forever Marvel. Love you. 3. No wonder you had 1,000 waiting. Appreciate it. Well, we got 7,500 now. Ellis is a new member. Really appreciate that. My view on it is this. Look, at the end of the day, you start your way at the top, which is with those arriving on a daily basis. That's where you start. You put an immediate end to that. That's pretty simple.
Then you've got damage limitation, haven't you?
What's that, Danny?
You've got damage limitation. If you're stopping the boats coming in now, we then can deal with the problems in-house, can't we?
Yeah, and the next step, exactly. So the first for me would be you got to stop them from coming. Secondly, immediate deportation of all the foreign-born criminals that are inside our jails.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Once you alleviate those two issues, it takes the stress off the rest.
Yeah.
And it brings the panic levels down. It brings the stress levels down. It brings down, it takes the strain off of a lot of our services. The temperature of the room will come down. And who knows, we can then look at those 1.5 million that are already here and maybe look at it in a different way. But what we could say is, look, you commit crime, you're gone.
You're gone.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I would be a lot more radical. I would say if they came here illegally, they're gone because it acts as a deterrent.
Look, absolutely, Richard. But what, as you said,
I think there's got to be a zero tolerance if they haven't got. I mean, look, and then of course the asylum system needs looked at as well, and the fact that I think it's 75% of our asylum claims are being approved, where in France it's 25%. So all that sort of stuff. And again,
Rich, are you saying though? Are you saying that if they come here illegally but then get granted asylum here, they've still got to go?
No. What I'm saying is the asylum system needs to be looked at because the asylum system is far too lax. So it's letting people stay. So obviously, it's a problem because once they've been given asylum, if they've managed to game the system, which let's get it right, some of them will have. Not all those guys that are getting asylum are genuine asylum seekers. Yeah. I think our asylum system's broken, and that's another thing that needs to be looked at as well. So
I think the big thing is crime. If you're here illegally, and you know that if you're caught, you get deported, that's going to put them off from committing crime, right? So all the time they're behaving themselves, they're not necessarily going to get caught. And if they're behaving themselves, they're not so much of a problem. So if you're caught, you get deported. That's a policy. And as they come across them, when crime is committed, they can ship them out. But at the end of the day, as Richard rightly said earlier on, you've got to remember what the optics would look like, what the media would make that look like. Like he said, Sky News, the BBC, the first person they knock on their door, they'd have a couple of kids. One of them was already born here in the UK.
Yeah.
It's a human rights minefield.
Yeah.
But there's not 1.2 million, is there, Paul? As I understand it, it's about 130,000 people waiting for their asylum to be accepted or not.
No, but I think there's about 1.2 million already here.
Yeah, but haven't a lot of those been granted asylum?
I don't know the figures, Danny.
No, you know what? On this, we probably let's not comment on something we don't know for sure about because that came from Farage. I mean, that came from Winston Marshall Farage. So we're just quoting their figures. So he was on about 1.2 million that are already here, and that's I'm guessing that's over a 10, 15 year period or whatever. Not necessarily all boat people, because people coming in.
But surely they can't all be outstanding claims to be accepted here.
I mean,
there are many thousands.
What it could be, Danny, it could be the ones that we actually that are here illegally that we don't officially know about because the ones that are in the 100-odd thousand, the ones that have come across on the boats have been processed
and are waiting, being processed. So
maybe there's one. Do you know what? Again, it's something.
No, you're probably right. To be fair, you're probably right.
But that was the figure that was in the video. But no, I mean, I think it's a massive issue, and I think the other thing we've got to say as well that settled immigrant communities, and I mean that West Indian communities, Indian communities, people that's come from all over the world and come here legitimately and settled and have built careers and businesses. If they're living in working class areas, they're probably more affected or as much affected by the white settled communities as from illegal immigration and from crime and from all the gangs that are running about and doing all the stuff they're doing. So it's not a race thing. It's about illegality and it's about basically disturbing social cohesion, isn't it? That's the thing, And again, did Nigel touch on it? The other thing is integration, and I think he did touch on it. He said if they don't speak English after 10 years, I mean, and that's only one indicator of integration. There's other indicators as well. So I think there's a lot of stuff that needs very seriously looked at, and because if we don't sort this out in the next 10 years, the country is finished. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, I think we've gone beyond the point now of we might have to sort this out or it might be a problem. It's gone way beyond that. Fuzzbin, thank you very much. Fellas, talk to a friend who's a policeman. We chatted about Tommy, boat invaders, Cabba, fear of police, and he confirmed it. It was almost refreshing to hear its topics talked of within his colleagues. I'm sure you'd have to be blind, wouldn't you, really, not to know what is going on. The British Patriot, he has to go. This could be the biggest scandal. I'll tell you what, let's get into the question that a lot of people are going to be wanting to let's just. I'm not going to play any of that video apart from this little clip. Let's just have a little listen, a couple of seconds long, to what Nigel said.
We are witnessing one of the biggest cover-ups we've ever seen.
So we are witnessing one of the biggest cover-ups that we've ever seen. And he went on to say that he knows a hell of a lot more about Southport case than the British public. And he went on to say, we are witnessing one of the biggest cover-ups we've ever seen in our lives. Now, again, as usual, I have to give this somewhat boring by now disclaimer. We're not talking about the case. We're talking about Nigel's comments. Now, for me, and for viewers to this channel, what Nigel said won't come as any news, because we've been saying exactly the same thing for weeks now. There's a lot more to come out. I know a lot more. I know that some of you guys watching now might know a lot more. But that video, the last time I looked, it had 250,000 views. So there's a lot of people that will have been the first time that they'd heard that. And they've been awakened by it. I've been looking at X tonight. It is absolutely a light. It's trending on X. And he also said that here's one of those 1,500-year moments when something phenomenal can come along and happen, and it changes things like you've never seen before. So he obviously knows what's going on in the background. Someone tonight, I'll say this and then I'll let you guys come in. Someone tonight has posted some information on X, which I will not repeat because I cannot verify it. I don't know it's true. And we know what happens when you repeat information on X that hasn't been verified. But if that information that is currently floating around on X right now is true, that is still not the information that I know about and that I believe Nigel Farage was talking about. It's still not the information. The information that Nigel's talking about has not been revealed, and it will not be revealed. Richard Tice tried to reveal it and was stopped in Parliament.
Can I bounce on that one, Paul? Richard Tice could have revealed it in Parliament. He could have just opened his mouth and disobeyed what the Speaker said and took whatever consequences the Speaker put upon him. That's what should have happened.
What would those consequences be, though, Richard?
I don't know. I would imagine some sort of maybe suspension from the House or whatever. But I mean, you know, it's hardly going to be a prison sentence. And even if it was,
you can't unding a bell, can you? You can't unding a bell. Once it's said, it's said.
I wanted to get this right, so I wrote this down. I wrote this down earlier, so just excuse me while I read this. We need to get one thing very clear and completely straight before we go any further with this one. Nigel is one of the very few top-level MPs who has dared to speak about the Southport issue and drop heavy hints as to what he believes is going on. Rupert Lowe, Richard Tice and Robert Jenrick are the others that I know of at least, but Nigel is the one with his neck well and truly and firmly on the chopping block. Now, Richard Tice tried to speak about this in Parliament and he was swiftly shut down by Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House. Clearly, in my opinion, not speaking for the House, but speaking and shutting down things for Keir Starmer. But we must all, Farage fans or not, whether we like Nigel, whether we don't, we must respect one thing, that he has been banned, just like everyone else, from talking about the Southport case. And if he does reveal what he knows, and there are a number of us out there that knows what he's talking about, he will be held accountable. He will be held in contempt, very likely be in contempt of court, and he could potentially be sent to jail. Now, what we've got to understand is that Nigel is not Tommy. Tommy's unique. There's only one Tommy. And I personally don't blame Nigel for not wanting to go to jail. But more importantly, and this is really vital that everyone understands this, because I've seen a lot of people tonight digging Farage out for not spilling the beans. This is the most important thing. If Farage or anyone else for that matter spills the beans, then it could even lead to the whole of the trial collapsing, which would be an absolute catastrophe. And you can guess who the media would take that out on if it happened. Yep. Nigel Farage. So for those of you out there that are understandably, I get it, you're saying, come on, Nigel, stop being a coward, cough it up. I say that you're wrong and that you have to understand why you're wrong. Mostly it's because you cannot risk collapsing that trial. That is just too big a risk to take.
I absolutely agree with you, Paul, 100%. And I tell you better than that. Nigel said all he needed to say, because Nigel said in a very sarcastic tone, of course it's not been classed as terrorism. That's all he needed to say. Of course it's not been classed as terrorism. The way he said that tells you everything you need to know. And again, you know, we're all talking in riddles because we live in a state that's quite happy to slam people into prison, into court, for getting one word wrong on Twitter. So if Nigel had stood up and said, it's this, this, and this, then, like you say, the case would have been probably collapsed. He would have been dragged through a court case, which would have caused all sorts of problems for him. And his leadership of any movement would have, well, actually, to be honest with you, his leadership of the movement would have probably gone through the roof if he'd have said it. Well, but, you know, but I understand. I agree with what you're saying, Paul. I agree with what you're saying. I think for Nigel and doing what he's doing, and look, you know, I'm one of Farage's biggest critics, right? But for what he's doing and what he's trying to achieve, you know, I don't blame him not saying it. I don't blame him.
Also, quoting a Nigel thing from the interview. So we're not saying anything that we shouldn't say.
Yeah.
He said they are trying desperately to defer it as well from January because they don't fancy this all coming out if it does come out. Whatever we're talking about.
Well, you know the old saying, Danny, time heals all wounds, right? And when someone is going to court, for an example, if you're up in court for a crime, whatever it is, your solicitor, if he's worth his salt, will try and defer that trial for as long as he can, because the longer it goes on, it kind of wears out a little bit. It's a little bit fish and chip paper. It's old news. And whereas you might have got 5 years originally, you might get 18 months or even a suspended sentence.
Isn't that what they're trying to do with the Manchester airport situation?
Well, they're not even been charged, Danny.
No, what I'm saying though, defer. Just put it all off. Just keep kicking the can down the street.
Yeah, but if they think the British public are going to forget this, they got another thing coming. There's no way. This will, in fact, every day that it gets deferred, the story just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I'm just amazed that there are people out there still that don't understand that if Farage says anything right now, even if he is not prosecuted, which I think there's a high chance that he would be, if that trial collapsed, imagine what they would do to him. Just imagine for a moment.
Yep.
Just imagine.
Well, here's the thing, Paul, right? What can we actually say? We can say, because it's in the public domain, that this animal was found to be in possession of an Al-Qaeda manual and he'd been manufacturing ricin.
Allegedly.
And he was caught at the scene of a crime, right?
Allegedly.
Well, even though he was, I mean, there was ricin, there was an Al-Qaeda manual. That's not even alleged. The police have said that. So that's not alleged. That's true, right? So we can say that quite clearly. So nobody really needs to say. Everybody knows. The dogs in the street know what's happened, right? So actually talking about the specifics of the case is not important because everybody now knows.
I know there'll be people out there going, "Oh, we need to know." But what I will say is this: look, guys, you know what? When the time comes, when everyone does know what Nigel knows right now, or what I believe he knows right now, that will be his moment. He will milk that to absolute death. And everyone will be able to sit back and celebrate him being able to milk that because it will exonerate a lot of people. Not just himself, by the way. But, you know, just it's a very, very sensitive situation. But I think, you know, the only thing that I would say about the Winston Marshall interview, for me, I was disappointed that he never spoke about Tommy. I was the big questions for me weren't answered, weren't asked. But to be fair to Winston, that was probably I would imagine that was a prerequisite. That was you can't talk to me about it. Don't want to speak about him. So that's not the fault of the interviewer.
No.
Yeah.
He wouldn't get away with that on this channel.
They're still allegedly saying that this is not a terrorist incident. Now, Paul and Richard, have you got ricin in your home? Have you got an Al Qaeda?
Well, Danny, I think for the sake of accuracy, I believe they're saying they're not sure. They haven't made their mind up about the actual.
Nigel said he believes they're still saying it's a non-terrorist incident. They're his words. I wrote it down word for word.
When Nigel said that, he laughed.
Allegedly, we've got to say allegedly because
he just threw his hands in the air and laughed when he said that. So that tells you all you need to know about what Nigel thinks about it.
All you need to know, yeah.
Can I just say something? What we've got to think about here, right? And we've got to always go back to this, is those 3 little girls, right? That's what we've got to think about here. Not that scumbag that did it, not the disgusting, vile cover-up, which appears to be happening, right? But we've got to think about those 3 little girls and their family, and not just 3 little girls. Was it 10 other people that were maimed and traumatized and will never recover, and their families? So there's probably in Southport, where everyone was going about these far-right riots, and let's just put that to one side, but in Southport, there's probably been tens of thousands of people affected by that who will know those families or be connected with those families. And and the personal tragedy of that is getting lost in all this. And that's what I want to think about, is those little girls and justice for those little girls and the truth being told. Because here's the thing, right? If it's not terrorist related, well, why the hell did he do it then? What was his motive? What was going on inside? You know, what makes somebody go and do that?
Yeah.
You know, and those are questions that we absolutely need answered. And the way the police are handling it and the way the legal system's handling it, well, again, we'll leave that for now. But to me, it's less than satisfactory, isn't it?
Oh, it's a long way less than satisfactory. As Nigel said, I think we're looking at the biggest scandal from the, you know, look, there are scandals over the years that have been huge. And I think when it comes down to public feeling, when it comes down to the nation's soul, because these little babies are involved, this is the biggest thing ever in my life that I can ever remember, without a question of a doubt. Warren, thank you. Starmer was too scared to face the farmers in Wales. You know what? I've not managed to get round to that one yet. But I saw the headline.
I like the catchphrase, Paul. Keir Starmer, the farmer harmer.
Keir Starmer. I'll tell you what. Has he got the worst name ever for having the rise taken out of him, mate? Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
He's just a tool, mate. He's just a tool.
Flossie Tea Cake, thank you. Nigel Farage is the only way he will get dismissed from Parliament if he says the truth. Play the long game, please, everyone. You see? Yeah. Flossie has a point, you know. I mean, I get that. I think what we've been trying to do, and Ben said it the other day, by the way. There's no harm in a bit of friendly pressure. Keep the pressure on. You know, again, I'll say what Ben said. You know, look, it doesn't matter to him whether it's inside or outside reform. We just want them to perform.
Yeah. You
know, give us what we want. We need a leader. We need strength. We need unity.
And I think Paul as well. I think Nigel really took the easy option, you know, mate, because there'd have been a lot more challenging interview and debate if he'd have basically come on your channel and spoke to you, you know. And I would imagine that you've made representations in that direction at some point to try and get him on.
He's had the chance. He's had the opportunity. Yeah, but I've got to tell you, Dan, Richard, he wouldn't have got such a softball interview. Sorry. No, let me apologise for that. Sorry, Winston, if you get to see this. It was a great interview, but I would not be willing to interview Nigel Farage unless I could ask him certain questions. Otherwise, what's the point?
Exactly.
And do you think that's why he's not come on the channel, knowing that? Quite probably.
So, as big a name as he is, he's not going to come on here and get a free ride. He's going to be asked the right questions. Gray, Farage is under far more scrutiny than competitors or non-MPs. He has to play within the rules of the game. It can only be solved politically. Again, yeah, I agree with that. Wow, look at this one. Shaka, thank you very much. Hope you're all well. Got the new watch. Brilliant. I hope you love it. Really appreciate that. My watch is now out. Over a year that's been in the making. Wow, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Hanky Doodle 1, Peter Link's funeral, November the 27th. Hopefully see you. It is. Unfortunately, I will not be in the country on the 27th. I'm going to be abroad, but I believe the family of him, have said they want us. Anyone that wants to go, they'll be welcome. I believe that's true. I saw a statement on Twitter, I think it was, or X as it is now, from a member of the family. So the details are there. Paolo, hi gents, we all need a Unite the Kingdom pie and Tommy running for PM. I mean, as nice as that will be. Flossie, got your message. Thank you, darling. As nice as that would be, I think it would take quite a while to win over a lot of Middle England where Tommy's concerned. That would take a bit of work, Richard, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, Paul, I mean, I put my little thumbnail up on my video, and it was who's the UK's Trump, and there's a picture of Tommy and a picture of Farage. And I think in the situation we're in, we need a very broad coalition that includes Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tommy is, people have got to understand, Tommy is a massive political figure. Without a shadow of a doubt. He's, you can't think about what he's managed to do. He's cancelled. He's got one social media channel, right? And he's still probably apart from Farage, he's probably the best known political figure on the right in the UK and possibly in the world, right? Yeah. That's with only being on Twitter.
And he's more popular. He's more popular than Nigel.
He's more popular than Nigel.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm not been, and again, I'm not digging Nigel out, but I've never met Nigel. But having known Tommy's got a genuineness and an authenticity about him that I think Nigel lacks a little bit. Nigel's very polished and very slick, but Tommy's one of us, Tommy's one of that lot. You know what I mean? And what whoever's going to pull all this together needs to do, they need to bring Nigel together, they need to bring Tommy together, they need to bring Ben Habib together, they need to bring people from UKIP together. And I've said this already, right-wing conservative politicians, that's the only way we're going to do this. Yeah. We can't do it with just reform. We can't do it with just UKIP. We can't do it with just Tommy. We can't do it with just conservatives. There has to be that broad coalition brought together, because that's what Trump did. And I think
what a powerful unit that would be, wouldn't it, Rich?
Absolutely.
What a powerful unit that would be.
Oh, it'd be a wonderful Danny, wouldn't it? I mean,
when people say I'm attacking reform and attacking Nigel, I'm actually not. What I'm saying is let's actually unite the kingdom. Let's do what we said we're going to do, and then we
it's out of frustration, right? It's frustrating, isn't it?
We're reaching out to the Black community. We're reaching out to the Jewish community. We're reaching out to Hindus and Sikhs. So we're doing all these things as a movement, right? And Tommy's been very effective at doing that, probably more so than Reform and Nigel. So we've got to get this critical mass that Trump got, and that's where the party that's the vehicle doesn't really matter. It's getting that body of people together under that ideology, which again comes back to the pledge. It's getting that groundswell of people together. And Nigel did talk about that a lot, because he talked about what Trump managed to do in bringing the coalition together, what the sort of people that were down with him in Florida, and the way that Trump had a cabinet. Trump had a hand-picked cabinet of loyalists ready to go before a year ago, right? Now, that's what whoever's going to do this, that needs to be done, because if we manage to win an election as a movement in 2029, unless we have people that we can put into the civil service, people that will go and abolish Ofcom, go and do all the stuff that has to be done in all these institutions, including all the educational institutions, the police, it's what we've got to do in the UK is a massive job of de-radicalisation. because the whole of our establishment has been radicalized by far left-wing politicians, and that needs to be completely dug out root and branch, and it's a massive job.
If everyone could put their differences aside, Rich, it would only take an average-sized lounge, wouldn't it, to house all these people, to thrash it out, all come out together, fighting in the same corner. And what a powerful.
And here's an important thing, right? Me and Danny's been doing a bit of work on a project over the weekend, right? And you know what we've been spending a lot of time doing is fighting against the real far right, right? You know, the patriotic alternatives, the National Front, all these other dribbly Nazis that that want to
and the left, Rich, and the left, right? We've been fighting against extreme, and that's the key. What we actually represent, and I'm talking about Tommy, I'm talking about UKIP, I'm talking about Reform, I'm talking about the right of the Conservative Party. We actually represent the vast majority of the British people, without a shadow of a doubt. Middle of the road.
100%.
That's the strength we've got, and it's
100%.
it's not built on race. It's built on patriotism. It's built on loving your country and wanting your country to succeed and wanting freedom.
I've got to tell you, Richard, when I first came into this about 9 months ago, I thought, you know what, uniting these people can't be that difficult. I'll tell you what, boy, oh boy, was I mistaken. Jesus, honestly.
You've no idea. You've absolute, Paul, it's like herding cats. And cats scratch.
Yeah. 10,000 people watching live. Please give us a thumbs up. It would really be appreciated. Epic 2000, cheers. It's not just about stopping mass immigration. We need to prevent it ever happening again. We should fight for a law that requires a referendum to ever go over 30k a year. I like referendums. I like referendums on all sorts of things. Mark W, evening, Paul, Danny and Richard. Airs audio. Reform, the legitimate solution. I love Tommy, but we need to separate this. Tommy, though, in the right, has too much baggage. That's the issue. Do you know what it is? He has too much manufactured baggage. I agree. I understand what you're saying when he has too much baggage, but if you take away the manufactured baggage, the lies, there's not a lot of baggage there at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, listen, everybody's got a past. And, Tommy would be the first to admit he's not an angel. But the stuff that people say about him that's not true is just horrendous. You know, the lies that's been told about that man and the slander and calling him racist and all that. You know, Peter Cardwell, calling him racist, he still hasn't apologized for it. He still hasn't showed any contrition. No. It was a lie. There's no evidence of Tommy ever been racist, ever. Just
out and out lie. Laurie and evening, gents. Well, Shaka. Well, I don't know what I've done to deserve this. Shaka online. Thank you so much. I'm in a good mood. This cigar is glorious. We'll always support the real ones. Give it to your grandkids for Xmas since I can't give it to my daughter. Oh, do you know what? Thank you so much. And I will 100% do that. It's really, really appreciated. And I've got to tell you, they are on my case left, right and centre. I've had Christmas lists for a fortnight already. Kelly, thank you very much for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. Kevin Rains, come on, tell me just how you're going to deport 1 million army of young males. Yeah, exactly, Kevin. I mean, look, as Nigel said, if we're realistic, that's not a simple task. It wouldn't take just a border force. It would take a small army, not only to deal with the numbers, but to deal with the potential violence and problems that would come with it and the civil unrest. Like I said, for me, we start with the easy one, which is the boats. Then we move on to the ones that are in jails. And then we move on to those, you get caught, you get deported. Simple as that. And the numbers will soon thin out and wear down them. We're slowly but surely start to get back to some sense of normality.
I think what you said, Paul, immediately was just stopping the boats coming in, and then dealing with the internal problem of the criminals. That then, as you say, releases so much pressure from the kettle, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? So you immediately, then you can concentrate on what you're doing afterwards, but you've got your house in order at that time, haven't you? There's no more damage coming in.
Absolutely. Go on, Richard. What was you going to say?
No, so I was just going to go back to the Christmas list thing, Paul. Apparently, as a result of something that happened on the internet last week, Boots have got into real problems. They're having a massive pre-Christmas sale. It was something to do with some crazy guy calling for a boycott. So if you want to get cheap Christmas presents, just get down to Boots. You'll get something for the missus. You'll get something for the tranny in the corner. It's going to be great.
Boycott Boots. Boycott Boots. Oh dear, love it. Flossie says, vote Farage, everyone, please. David, patriots that believes in the law of the United Kingdom. Absolutely agree with that. Let's move on to something else he said. He said, if you've been here 10 years and not learned to speak English, that suggests that you've refused to integrate, and they could face potential deportation. What do you make of that one, boys?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going fairly light, to be honest with you. But I think it's a good start. I'm going to
disagree with you there.
I don't as well. I don't agree with it because I've lived in Spain now for 4 years and I can't speak Spanish very well at all. Although
you've lived in England for most of your life, you can't speak English
either. I know. I can speak Cockney in it. But yeah, I think that I'm not at the age where I can easily pick that sort of stuff up. Sophie can pick it up. She can speak reasonable Spanish, and Carter's fluent. He's only 4. So they're okay. But I don't think I can speak very basic Spanish.
You see, being very fair about the situation, and I like to always try and be fair, even though it might piss some people off. If you look at some families in some communities, particularly the women, many of them won't have been allowed to integrate. And it's very hard to become fluent in a foreign language if you don't, learning another language on the internet is one thing. Being in and amongst it, being around the language every day, and interacting with people that speak the language is something completely different. So look, I agree that learning to speak English is vital, but I'm not sure that not being able to speak English fluently should necessarily deem you ready for deportation. Personally,
can I? Okay, if I can come at that from a slightly different angle, those women that have not been allowed to speak English, right? If it was legally binding, they had to learn to speak English. That was part of their immigration package. Those women, if they learned to speak English, they would have to go out. Because let's get it right, and I'm not saying in all cases, but in certain communities, women come to this country, they're not allowed out. They're not allowed to mix with other women. They're not allowed to mix with the infidel. They're not allowed to go and do the normal things that your wife can do and my wife can do, right? They are literally prisoners to a great extent. Right?
And to be fair, that's not just the Islamic community either. There are other communities.
I didn't mention the Islamic community at all.
Yeah. No, you said the infidels.
Well, yeah, that wasn't mentioning Islam, but fair point. But the reality is that those women would be emancipated by getting out and learning to speak English, and that would be a massive problem for extremists, because extremists don't want their wives learning to speak English. They don't want them being. Look, I've a friend in the northwest of England. She's a former. She's still Pakistani, obviously, but she's a former Muslim. She's a Christian girl now. And the horror stories that she tells, just from within her very, very small-knit family community up in that area, about what she went through, about what her sister-in-law went through, about what other family members went through, and that's happening. Massive, wide scale. Obviously, the grooming thing's been a massive problem, but the elephant in the room is that there's millions of women in this country who do not have equal rights.
Yeah,
and I think if they had to learn to speak English, that they would be emancipated, because they'd become like all the rest of our wives. Who wouldn't take any nonsense from us, and if we try to give them any nonsense, they'd give us a whole lot of guff back. And I think that's a massive thing, because that could actually help those women that you're talking about that can't speak English, because them not being able to speak English means they can't get jobs, means they can't go outside of that community. And it's
Richard, I do agree that speaking English is vital, and I'm not saying that I'm soft on that. What I'm saying is that I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't put it this way. I'll be honest. I wouldn't say that a blanket deportation order on anyone that can't speak English properly, because I think that would be unfair.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm from Middlesbrough. Half of Middlesbrough would have to go.
Exactly. There's plenty. I was going to say there's plenty of Geordies. I can't understand a bleeding word they're saying.
You know.
I've got a very good friend.
Don't even talk to me about Brummie accents.
I've got a very good friend who's a Geordie, and after a few pints, we have to text each other.
It's subtitled, mate.
There's no point in talking to each other.
We eye on you, lad.
Let's get down to the couple of points where I think we've been fairly complimentary towards Nigel and the interview. There's a couple of bits that I wasn't so happy with. One of them was he spoke about loyalty, a handshake and a look in the eye, and he spoke about the importance of loyalty. I just wish that he'd show a little bit more loyalty to his voters. I'm not going to dig him out any more than that, but I'll just say, Nigel, you said it, a handshake, a look in the eye, and you spoke about the importance of loyalty. Well, I think that many people out there watching this right now have been very loyal to you and your party and would like to remain so. But you need to show some back. Loyalty is not a one-way street, And you often find that if you are loyal to people, they will repay you tenfold. And without that loyalty, I suggest that winning the next general election, which I think you're more than capable of doing, is going to be very difficult without that loyalty. You need to bring people together. You can do it. You have the power. You have the wherewithal. You have the means. You have it all. But do you have the sense? That's another question. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that, but...
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about, is it Gawain that used to work for
Yeah.
I think Nuttall, all Farage, absolute loyalists. And where are they now? And I don't think that those guys would have been disloyal to him. I don't know. I don't know the inner workings of reform, but it seems that they've very much been thrown under the bus. So, I mean, like you say, it's a two-way street. And once that trust's broken, it's very hard to get it back, isn't it?
Well, this is it, I've gone on record in the past, so I'm done with reform, I'm finished with them, that's it. Look, that's kind of out of frustration, out of temper, and, there's still a lot of flowers to be bought for me.
Paul, they're not the finished article yet. I mean, they're not where they should be. I mean, there's a lot of work needs to be done. And I think, again, it brings me back to Ben Habib. You've met him a couple of times. What's your gut feeling about Ben, and why do you think reform needed?
Oh, I think I've met a lot of people in my life, Richard. I've been involved in football, professional boxing. I've been a businessman all my life. I've met quite a lot of politicians. And Ben's different. There's something about Ben. He's a very warm character. That doesn't mean to say that you can mess with him, but I feel he's a very warm individual, and he's one of the few politicians or people of power, or potentially of power at least, that doesn't look through you when they speak to you. And they listen and they consider. And I think what we need in this country is someone that is capable of bridging all classes, that can talk to the Tommy supporters, that can talk to the Tory toffs, that can appeal to the working man in the north of England, that can appeal to the former coal miners in South Wales, can appeal to your Cornishmen and the people from the West Country, people that can talk to everyone and earn and gain their respect. And I just think that Ben's got something very special about him. Yeah, I do. I really like the guy.
I mean, I met him with you that day, and we had a long meeting with him. I mean, I know he's a very busy man. He's a very successful businessman. We had a long meeting. He was very, very. I mean, do you know what? He listened. Who am I to go in and talk to Ben Habib or these politicians? Who are any of us? You know what I mean? But he listened to everything that we said, and he listened intently, and he was more than polite. He was welcoming. He was friendly. And it wasn't fake. I can spot a fake. Obviously we all get fooled from time to time. That we all get turned over from time to time.
Yeah.
But on the whole, I can spot someone that's genuine, and he's one of those. he's one of those guys.
He's a classy guy. He's a classy guy. You know.
And in Northern Ireland, when we're still ongoing, the problems with the protocol, when there was events, there was demonstrations, Ben was on the platform. So he was on the platform with the DUP and the TUV and loyalist speakers, and he was him and Kate Hoey taking a real stand for Northern Ireland. Now, I don't think before the protocol Ben would have really known much about Northern Ireland, but he got massively engaged because he realised how important it was for the structural integrity of the UK, and he took a stand for little old Northern Ireland. He didn't have to do that; did it at his own expense. He had no political gain in that whatsoever because nobody in England would have even known he was doing it. Yeah. So that's
he's a genuine patriot, and they're few and far between. And it's country before he puts his country before he puts himself. Go on, Danny. Sorry.
No, I wasn't going to say nothing, mate.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just listening. I'm listening. Sorry, mate.
I genuinely believe that he puts his country first, and I don't think there's any bridge that he wouldn't cross to try and win back this country. I do believe firmly, and this is my firm, genuine belief, that if Ben was in reform, we wouldn't be where we are now. We would be a far more united we'd be a far more united unit, a far more powerful unit. But I believe the problems with reform and Ben may be insurmountable with the current chairman. Well, we'll see. But
Paul,
I don't know.
I've never met the guy at all. Never spoken to him. But I've seen him on your channel a few times. I've seen him on different other channels, and he does come across exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. Everything that he's asked, he seems to have a great answer for. He seems to be very firm, like you say, very warm. I think he would get an awful lot of support if he had
here's a good thing as well for a potential leader of the country. It's hard to dislike him.
Yeah,
it'd be a cold heart that took a dislike. I mean, you could put Ben in the room with Vladimir Putin, and he'd have to have a heart of stone to walk out of that meeting and go, "Well, he was a right prick." You're gonna warm to him. He's that sort of person, and I think you want that in leaders. Someone that can't be messed about.
You do, but he's also very across all the. I mean, that interview that you did with him went into a lot more depth than actually. And again, I'm not digging Winston out at all, but it went to a lot more depth with Ben than you did with Winston Marshall. And he spoke knowledgeably about every issue that's affecting the country and the world, to be honest with you. So his knowledge base was absolutely superb. So he's very, very intelligent man, and he's very articulate and actually more winsome than Nigel. He comes across as a nicer character. And I'm not digging Nigel, because that's not what tonight's about at all. But that's just
I think we've been supportive for Nigel.
And I think it's like what you're saying, Paul, is that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Ben, as whatever political entity he was leading, if that was the critical mass, he would be able to bring Tories, reform, and that lot, which is us, and we're the ones that are being excluded at the minute by Nigel. That's not been addressed. It's Tice and Nigel are still excluding us lot, and that's a fact. So
but as Tommy himself said, I am still willing to look past all that for the good of the country. I don't need for Nigel to like me or you or Danny or anyone, as long as we win our bloody country back.
I'm not, because it's not going to unless he engages with the working class and mobilises the working class. And Tommy said this: unless the working class are actually mobilised and engaged, he's not going to succeed. So that's what Trump did. Trump did not exclude. Trump did the opposite to that. Trump did the opposite to what Richard Tice said is what Hillary Clinton said.
Yeah.
When she said the deplorables, it's what Biden said just before he lost the election for Kamala. Calling what he called them garbage or something, didn't he? Call Trump supporter garbage or something. So that's what Tice has done. So they do need to. That needs to be fixed. I'm sorry, that's a massive thing.
It does need to be fixed. Sean, thank you, mate. Says, come on, guys. The knob was caught red-handed. How can the case collapse? Do you know what, Sean? Believe me, legalities. It could. It says, Paul, I'm waiting for my watch to watch the lead time. I think it's about a week there or thereabouts, Sean. Bear in mind that the manufacturer sends them out. I don't. Jackie, thank you. Do you think they are trying to defer it because we have the Ricky Jones case in the same month? I don't think so. I don't think that
I
would
just
be.
think they want to get rid of the case. Do you know what I mean? Just like
Yeah,
keep moving.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Meow Moog, everyday reality is getting weirder and worse. I've been feeling a bit better since Trump's.
But that's for an outside influence, isn't it? This country's not really got much better, has it?
Danny, do you know what, Danny? We will win this country back. Labour will not win the next general election, whenever that is, whether it was tomorrow, next week, next year, or in 4.5 years' time. There's no chance that Labour will be re-elected. And it's probably, Starmer will probably take Labour to their coffin and their burial.
Do you know what?
I think
interesting?
The taste that he will leave in the nation's mouth will never, ever be forgotten, I believe. Go on, Danny, sorry.
I think he'll go down as the worst prime minister in history.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
I just hope he doesn't go down as the most dangerous in history, because
takes us down with him.
Takes us down with him, yeah. NJ Custard Chops, illegal entry to the UK, no problem. Send back to the country of origin. Won't take them, no problem. No more legal travel to the UK until take them back. Oopsie, thank you very much for the super sticker, Blue Moon. If it's non-terrorism, how can Tommy's be terrorism charges 2-tier all day long? I mean, look, blimey, we won't even go into that one tonight because we'd be here all night, but you're absolutely spot on. ADHD navigator, Starmer has little man syndrome and yellow teeth. I think he's also got a massive sinus problem as well. But there you go. Meow Moo, you guys off to support our farmers on Tuesday. I will be there. Danny's in Spain and Richard's in Northern Ireland. But
there are protests in Northern Ireland. In fact, I was talking to a farmer at the weekend now, Friday I think it was, and she left a very, very successful career to farm on her family farm to build it up for a son, and she was actually in tears. They have one of these, these milking things where they sell the fresh milk, at the side of the road, and sounds very, very Irish, doesn't it? But she was saying this is like just horrendous what they've done. And she's not political, because I've tried to talk to her about political stuff before, and she's just like, not really my thing, And I think she's probably a bit lefty, to be honest with you, but just disgusted with what he's done, So this is a massive problem for him, And if he thinks he can break the British farmers, well, we'll see. I don't think he will.
I don't think he will either. CFC Daniel S. I agree. The long game, please, Nigel. Just let it out bit by bit. Let people piece it together. Look, I will go along with that quite happily. The problem that I do have is that a friend is a friend, and someone who has been loyal to this country, like Tommy, I cannot stand by and see him thrown under a bus and just sit back and accept it and wipe my mouth and forget it. That's the difficult one for me. That's the real difficult one for me. Amore, read the same manual and others years ago for counter-terrorism. Everything you are thinking, guys, is right. Prayers were said for your family, Danny.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Shaka Online is back again. I'm not sure this has got to be a wind-up, Shaka. Thank you so much. Here is my TV license bill. Wow, unbelievable. Dear, oh dear.
I reckon he's got your credit card, Paul.
I was going to say he's got me credit card. Oh yeah, Richards will be even better, mate. Thank you so much. Forever Marvel, trying to wake my partner up. You say something.
Wake up!
Fire. That normally works. Let's get on to the last sentence, or the most contentious one, if you like, and the one perhaps where I think there's going to be a bit of not argy-bargy, but it's a bit contentious. On British Muslims, he said, if we politically alienate the whole of the Islamic vote, we will lose. And he reiterated, we will lose. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't even like the fact that we have to talk about a religion when it comes to voting on a government in the UK. That's sectarianism. and I don't like it. And I'm disappointed that he feels that we would have to pander to any religion, in order to win control of our country. I didn't like that bit, and I thought it was a mistake. That's my view.
Totally. I mean, it's. I think he's wrong. The reality is, what he said that's right is that obviously not every single Muslim. We've got to always say this because it's true. Not every single Muslim is a radical, and not every single Muslim is going to cause problems with terrorism. If that was the case, the country would be in civil war.
Or every single Catholic, or every single Sikh.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the Sikh community yet.
The problem is, Paul, let's get it right. The problem is, this is where I get really frustrated, because the problem that we've got is that the terrorism problem now, if you'd have said 30 years ago, you could have said it was Irish Catholics, and you would have been right. It was Irish Catholics that were planting bombs and doing the terrorist attacks on the mainland, right? So the biggest threat to UK security from terrorists came from the Provisional IRA, who were nominally Irish Catholics. But even then, they were not doing it because of their religion. They were from that demographic, but they weren't doing it because it was embedded in their religious beliefs. The problem that you've got with Islamists, I'm not talking about Muslims, I'm talking about Islamism, is that they're using the religious texts of Islam and the doctrines of jihad to promote an ideology that justifies violence in the name of their religion. Now, I don't think anyone can say that's contentious. That's a fact. That's what every counterterrorism expert would say. So that is something very specific and unique to Islam. But like I say, it doesn't mean for a minute that every single Muslim by any means wants to carry out those acts or those attacks. So that's one thing, the terrorism side of thing. So you put that in a box and you put it over there. The next thing you've got is very conservative which is what Ben actually spoke about when we met him, fundamentalist Islam, which is a different thing again. So that's basically wanting Sharia law in the country that you're living in. And again, the proportion of that, depending on what poll that you look at, is anything between 25 and 40%, okay, among UK Muslims. So that's the issue that we're facing. Now, at the minute, let's say worst, let's say best case scenario, let's underestimate by a mass amount, let's say 20%. Well, if we end up in 10 years' time with 10 million Muslims in the UK, which is highly likely, might be that already, we don't know. That means you're going to have 2 million Muslims who want Sharia law in the UK. Now, I have a problem with that. And I think a lot of Muslims would have a problem with that. And I think everybody else in the country would have a problem with that. But the 2 million people that believe in that, they have a problem with what we believe. So just saying that, Nigel's saying, well, we'll just all hug and kiss and we'll all get along and that'll be fine. I agree with you, Paul. That's not the solution to this nightmarish scenario, which we've seen played out in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in the West Bank and Gaza, in Egypt, in Somalia, in Nigeria, in
it doesn't end well, does it?
No, so everywhere you end up with these two forces butting heads, it causes a problem. So what we've got to try and do, and I don't know the answer to it, I don't think Nigel does. How do you find a solution to, if it's 2 million Muslims that want Sharia law and they're using all the organs of power to pull those levers, to push for it and get what they want? And how many of the other 8 million that are here are going to go, well, we're going to push back against them and stop them doing that? Because remember, I'm using the absolute most minimal argument and then taking 5% off it. So I'm being very, very conservative when I'm saying that, because I don't want to be, terrifying everybody. But the reality is, if it's 40%, it's 4 million. So that's the scale of what we're up against. And what Nigel said that was very interesting, he's absolutely right, is that every 10 years, every 10 years that increases by 75%. 10 years, 75% in 10 years. So if it's 10 million now, 10 years time, another 75%. So that's another 7.5 million. My master's right. So this is a really, really frightening thing, and a lot of people won't talk about it because they're too scared to talk about it. And like I say, I am not attacking individual Muslims. But what I'm
So
saying
what's the answer, Richard? What's the answer?
Paul, I don't know. On this, I genuinely don't know. I mean, and again, Farage, said, look at what they're doing in the UAE. Look at what they're doing in the Arab countries that are de-radicalizing. They're basically marginalizing. They're imprisoning them, the radicals.
Well, it is possible, Richard, because look, you are less likely to be a victim of a terrorist attack in Dubai than you are in London. That's a fact.
Yeah. But it's a lot. But the problem is, it's a lot smaller country. It's got a lot more resources to deal with that, and also they're dealing with their own kith and kin, if you like. They're dealing with the people that they can very easily get the information on and find out what they're doing. Like it was in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland was fairly easy to deal with the terror. It might not seem that, but it was a lot easier to deal with than a country like Iraq or Afghanistan. So when I've
been in Dubai, Richard, and I speak to the MRIs, they say, "What are you guys doing? You're letting in all the nutcases. You're mad." Yeah. And these are Emiratis talking, not lads down a pub in South London. These are Emiratis.
Absolutely. And the Saudis are coming to the same conclusion. I mean, Saudi Arabia is getting more westernized under, I can't remember the guy's name, the prince that took over about five years ago. So those countries are making progress. And of course, they had the Abraham Accords with Israel. So but the problem is, the UK has been a mecca for radicalism for many, many years. Melanie Phillips, the Jewish journalist and author, she wrote a book called Londonistan in, I think it was about 2000, maybe it's even the late 90s, but certainly late 90s, early 2000s. And she was talking about the radical groups that had set up shop in London because it was safe for them to set up shop because of all the human rights and all the other stuff. And this has been going on since the 90s. So we have absolutely massive problems. And that's why I think when you talk about it, you look at Tommy. Tommy's talked about this honestly. Tommy's never incited violence against Muslims. He's never talked about individual Muslims, but he's talked about the problems that we're talking about tonight in very, very simple and straightforward terms. And for that, he's been demonized. So I think with Nigel's either not telling the truth. In other words,
he's not showing his hand. He's not showing his hand. Yeah.
Well, if that's a very dangerous thing to do as well, because you're better just saying, well, okay. I mean, if someone is radical and they're not from this country and they're planning to do harm to this country, and we've got evidence for that, then surely, to goodness, getting back to the deportations, they should be arrested and be sent back to whence they came. But of course, the problem is if you've got someone like we had the guy living in, I think it was South London, in a council flat, who was like, on the leadership of Hamas, and he was organizing a lot of those demos. What do you do with him? Because if you send him back to Israel, he's going to be arrested. So he can then claim his human rights and stay in the country. So these are very difficult issues to solve. And
a lot of difficult issues come from the Human Rights Act. That's what makes it so difficult.
Of course.
But I mean, the problem is as well, Danny, if you go down this road, and this is what the government's terrified of, if you go down this road of start, arresting people who are radical, very quickly they become martyrs, and very quickly you end up with a very, very angry mob on the streets, and not enough police and military to contain that. And that's we're at that situation probably now. So in 10 years' time, how much worse it's going to be. So I think
it's going to be uncontrollable.
Yeah, exactly. But it's something we have to talk about.
And here's the thing as well, Richard. I don't know if it was Ben or Nigel that said this now, but the decent Muslim community, they should probably fear this more than us, or equally as much. Yeah, because they've got a lot to fear from this as well. We need to learn to live together.
That's why they don't speak out. And how do you find the people of goodwill in that community? And it's not just there's not just one Muslim community. There's all sorts of different variations of Islam and so on. So how do you find out who are the people of goodwill? How do you find out who are the people that can influence things? And if those conversations aren't being had about what the problems are in that community, if there was a problem like that, And there is a problem like that in Northern Ireland with still certain dissident Republican groups, but people can talk about that openly and say, well, that's wrong and we're against that. People in that community will stand up against them and say that we're against that. And the same with extremists in any part of the country. We say it about the far right all the time. We're always digging the far right out. We're always saying we're not to do with these racist goose-stepping Nazis. We're always mocking them and speaking against them. So why isn't there allowed a voice among Muslims to do that? And why every time there's a terrorist attack, the first thing that's said is, oh, we mustn't be Islamophobic. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that it's a debate that needs to be had, and it's a question of I'm very aware of how YouTube can misrepresent things. I am not attacking Muslims or the Muslim community, but what I'm saying is we need to be able to have a conversation.
Yeah, we need to be able to do that together. We need to be able to have an adult conversation together to get it resolved.
Exactly.
Rosemary Halls, because if we don't talk about it, it's never going to get resolved. Today, Peter Cardwell's guest accused Tommy of inciting violence. I only watched it to see if anything was said, and I couldn't watch any more after that. I mean, well, we know what Peter's been up to, don't we, Rosemary?
What's wrong with that fella?
Yeah, proper wrong. And NJ Custard Chops, Alex Phillips' interview was revealing Farage, plus sticking her neck out with Dan Wootton. It's shifting, lads. It's bloody shifting. It is shifting. It is.
Slowly but surely it is, yeah.
Guys, thanks for your supers tonight. Really appreciate it. Please don't send any more now because we are coming towards the end of the show. But thank you so much for helping to support us. Give us a thumbs up as well. That would be appreciated, Linda. Great chat as always, guys. I'm sitting back on who I will support in 2029. I think a clear leader will emerge in a couple of years' time. Linda, look, good point. All this, we must do this now. We must do that now. There's a long, long, long way to go. Si, thank you very much. I'm 64 and lived in Wales all my life. I can't even say a basic sentence in Welsh. There's a good example. There's lots of Welsh people can't speak Welsh.
Sorry, it looks like you're going back to England.
Sadiq wants to be friends with Big Bully Trump.
Yeah, I bet he does now.
Sufferfish, Farnborough Hill Private School for Girls go to Pars Hotel to teach English to migrants on their free period. How mad is that? Yeah, that is cranky. I don't see that ending well long run. Michael Andrews, super sticker. Thank you so much. Shaka, you're worrying me. Thank you so oh dear, oh Lord. Last one.
It's called money laundering.
Yeah. Or a stolen credit card. I'm joking.
Thank you.
I'm joking, Shaka. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that.
I really
I didn't mean it either. I'm only pulling you like.
Last one. Going to open this 1738 and have a drink. Pew pew. Wow. Thank you so much. That's unbelievable.
I think we just keep the channel going, keep Saka on that, whatever he's drinking, and you'll be all right.
Yeah, I hope you're not drunk there, and you're not going to regret that tomorrow. Epic 2000, our voice is growing, but it is still small compared to the size of the UK. Can we use billboards to drive traffic to this channel? What about leaflets at train stations? PPC reaching out to churches.
Do you know what, right? Do you know what? I'm going to just jump in just quickly, right? You don't need to do billboards and stuff. If people have got their social media with 500 friends on there or 400 or 200 friends on there, if they just copy the link of here, share it onto their Facebook social media, that will immediately... Imagine if there was 10,000 people here and then they all got, 300 friends on Facebook and you could just share that link. Yeah. The channel would just blow up. It really would.
I tell you what, we'll try a little experiment, Danny, right? It's a good point. There's still over 9,000 people watching. At the end of this video, guys, if every single one of you watching right now could share this video on your social media, let's see what it does to the numbers.
Do you know what you do? You just click share, copy link, go over to your social media, paste it, post it. Simple as that. It's 20 seconds.
And that's the same. What happens to the six people that are watching on my channel do the same thing.
Kenny Milson, thank you. What are your thoughts on the reform? What are your thoughts on the Reform UKIP coalition? Don't see it happening. No chance.
Well, I think it should happen. I think it should happen. I think this is what I think. This would be my dream ticket, right? We get Tommy into UKIP. We basically, because at the end of the day, people from Tommy's side are not going to join Reform because of the situation with what's happened.
Well, hold on. They can't join Reform, Richard.
Can't join, exactly. So the only home I'm a member of UKIP, right? And I'd be quite happy for UKIP and Reform to form a coalition. If UKIP had, I don't know, 30,000 members by the next election, Reform's got 100,000 members, whatever it is, we've got loads of people signed up to the pledge, we've then got a massive, massive machine to wield into the field. And, I think all those things coming together, and like I say, I haven't given up on some of the right-wing Tories. I'm probably stupid, but Suella Braverman seems like a genuinely, thoroughly decent person. Don't trust Jenrick as far as I could throw him. Not sure about Badenoch, but there's still going to be some good people in the Tory party as well. So if we could form a very broad right-wing coalition that agrees on the basic principles, like in fact what we've got in the pledge, then I think we've got a winning ticket. I really do. You're muted, Paul.
You're muted, Paul, mate.
Best part of the show then, that was. I say, the problem is he's getting these buggers together, isn't it? It's like you said about herding cats. I think it's worse than that.
Yeah.
It's a more difficult job than that. That's why we need someone who's very charismatic, who is a genuine leader, that can stand head and shoulders above everyone and go, right, this is what we're going to do, and everyone will be prepared to follow it.
Ben Habib.
Well, the guy for that really is Tommy, but unfortunately, it's not that. I don't ever see that happening, if I'm honest.
Well, there is one person that we're just not mentioning, and we've all forgotten about, way back from the 1990s. Mr. Bean.
Gerard.
Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean.
Rowan Atkinson.
Atkinson. He'd do well, wouldn't he? Forever Marvel, will you have TR on your show, Paul, when he returns? Absolutely. Looking forward to seeing him. Dysfunctions. I'm smiling because I can see something else coming up in a minute.
I'm going to look at that. I want to know what it says.
Dysfunctions. Proud Cornishman here. Chemowek. And I think whatever Ben can do, Nigel can just do as well. Love your content from Kerno. By the way, love Cornwall. And he's back again, boys. Look. Oh, I like the contention. No, do you know what? I seriously don't know what to say. I hope it's not inland revenue there. But seriously, thank you so much. By the way, people will see this money coming in and they're going to go, "Oh, Paul's, smashing it here tonight." Look, guys, I will be doing a lot of different things over the next few weeks and months. The next time we have a demo, I'm going to book a coach out of my own pocket, bus load a load of people down. So a lot of this money goes to good causes, and I like to think that Richard will confirm that happens.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that's the reality is. I think people have got to understand. I know how, and look, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass, Paul. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, I know how much work you do offline, getting in touch with people, talking to prominent people, building those relationships. I know how difficult that is because I was doing it 7 years ago. It's more than a full-time job. And I'll be honest with you, I think doing what we're trying to do literally on fresh air is just not possible. So, both, I think every one of us that's been involved in the movement for any amount of time, we talked about it before, has had a massive hit financially from doing it. And, if what comes in here helps you to be able to do what you do full time, Paul, then,
Well, Rich, some days we start off with a conversation about 7:30 a.m. and we're still having one at midnight. I mean,
really we are, and I mean, there's all sorts of little spats and stuff and infighting and stuff that you have to sort out because obviously you want to try and keep different teams together. And that can take, you know, and I'm not going to go into too much, but Saturday I spent hours trying to sort out an issue. I'm not going to talk about at all what it was, but I spent hours on it. And again, hopefully got a resolution. But, you know, people just don't understand, you know, they just don't get what's involved. And, you know, so to me, you know, if you were getting £1 million a year, it wouldn't be enough to do what we're trying to do, you know. I mean, it's just.
Well, if I do, I'll tell you what, Rich. If I do, I'll book 10 coaches. How about that?
I do, mate. Yeah. Book me a Bentley. Get me a Bentley from the airport.
Find your way, Ben. Thanks, mate. Starmer's saying they must protect mosques and Muslim communities. What mosques have been attacked? Which Muslims? No evidence of this happening. All I see is British women and children being attacked. Yeah, I mean, look, there was a couple of incidents during the riots that weren't particularly savoury, but I agree. You know, I mean, the British people have been very tolerant. Oh, super tolerant.
I think the problem is, Paul, too, as well. I think if it's from the point of view of what happened, and I said this during the riots, I made a video on it actually, and it was my video was directly aimed at the Muslim community. I says, guys, listen, this is not EDL, this is not a plot, this is not, you know, right wingers making plans to attack the Muslim community. That's not what's happening. You know, it's spontaneous, localized outbursts of rage. It wasn't aimed, as far as I could see. It was in some areas, but on the whole, it was just people getting really angry about what was happening. And what Starmer did, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, but he incited racial hatred by the way he spoke about the riots and spoke about the attacks on the Muslim community, because you know, there was no coordinated, you know, rampage.
No, there was one or two people that did some stupid things.
Some very nasty stuff. There was some very nasty stuff happening in Middlesbrough. There was some very, but you know, but
we didn't need it to exaggerate. We didn't need Starmer blowing it up, because, like I've said it a dozen times before, Richard. There are people from both communities sitting in jail right now who didn't need to be there.
Absolutely. And remember, there was lads went on a rampage through Middlesbrough after Nick Lowles put out that fake tweet about an acid attack in Middlesbrough, and he has not been called to account for that. And there was serious disorder, and people were beaten with sticks, and had their heads kicked in as a result of his tweet, and he hasn't been called to account for it. You know, so if Nick, if you're watching, you know, you should be waiting to knock on the door from the police more than anybody else.
Find your way, Ben. I've just read that one, haven't I? Sorry. One vigilante. Hi, Paul. I met you at a rally and left you my number. I've been released on bail for misgendering my sister. I don't have a smartphone. Do you know what? Your number, if you gave it to, I do remember you, it will be buried in a pile about that deep of numbers that people have given me. And I'm trying to get around them one by one. It is an absolute job and a half, I tell you. I wouldn't want to be Prime Minister, I know that. Gal Pinnock, where is a photo, not a drawing? Keep up the great work, guys. Yeah, that's another one. All we get is that photo in it, that one with
yeah.
And the one when he was Doctor Who's assistant or something. Yeah. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. NJ Custard Chops. Have you listened to Matt Goodwin? Yes, I have. He's strong on deportation. Him and Douglas Murray are incredible. Phil.
There's another guy that should be involved.
Douglas, yeah, absolutely. Forever Marvel. My granddad nearly died the other night. I had to pick him up from the floor. It was awful. His dad was in World War One, is that? And what for?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel like that, don't they? You know, I want to see the demographics or the age, I should say, more than anything. I want to see younger people at our next event.
Yeah.
We need to build a wall around the UK. Craig, we don't need one, mate. We've got the biggest moat in the world.
Yeah.
We've got a moat. That's all we need. A moat. You know, they used to build around castles back in the old days.
It's scandalous, isn't it? It's scandalous that these boats are getting across. When you think about it,
can you imagine if we weren't? Can you imagine if we wasn't an island?
Oh,
can you imagine? You know? But like you say, it's scandalous when you think about the logistics of it. When you think about the actual fact that people are, mate, I think I told this story before. During the pandemic, right? I don't even want to use the word because YouTube get all funny about it. During the lockdown, I took my little boat from Newhaven to Eastbourne, and they wouldn't even let me in Eastbourne Marina. They went, no, you can't come in. No, you can't. So I, as an Englishman, I couldn't travel from Newhaven to Eastbourne because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But now, 200 or 300 every day or whatever the numbers are, can swan across halfway because they get picked up halfway. Unbelievable. I mean, the
Put in
mind
a
boggles.
5-star hotel.
Yeah.
How lovely. Put in a 5-star hotel.
I'm sure we're all tripping out. We're going to wake up one morning.
I hope so.
Wind up.
Well,
Jeremy Beadle's going to pop up from underneath the screen and tell us all what a bunch of idiots we've been.
You've been had. But the worse than what happened to you, Paul. I swim in a little marina just down the road from me because I can't afford a boat. But the marina, one of the lads was swimming in the marina during lockdown, right? And there was a police helicopter buzzing him. No word of a lie, hovering above him, filming him swimming in the marina because it was breaking lockdown regulations.
Yeah.
And then the police came down the next day and spoke to everybody. You know. But the point is that you're making there, and it's a very valid point. If they were able to lock us all in our houses for however long it was, are you telling me they can't stop the boats and send them back to France? It's not.
Of course they can. Of course they can stop the boats, Rich.
They don't want to.
Can. It's all part of their plan. This isn't mistakes, is it? This is deliberate. It's all part of the agenda.
Listen, if we can fly to the moon, I think we can stop a rubber dinghy.
Yeah.
And in World War II, we stopped the might of the German Navy. So I'm sure we can stop a few rubber dinghies, didn't you?
Absolutely.
Epic 2000, we need to understand that the West is culturally very weak. Our men have been weakened. Our families are weak. Our young men are not on our side. That's a great point. I mean, I agree with a lot of that. Culturally, I think the West is weak. We do tend to be a bit of an I'm all right, Jack nation and Western society in many ways. I think the Americans finally got their act together this month. Edward Golden Tooth, Tommy for UKIP, our hero. Appreciate that. Ellis, do you think voters will turn to Britain first if reform does not deliver? My honest opinion, no. Forever Marvel, honestly, if I won millions lotto, I'd give you lots. Oh, bless. I'd give it away myself too. So ADHD, I'll be at Victoria on Tuesday. Paul, see you there. One woman vigilante. Thank you, Paul. It meant so much to meet you. I cried up there on the way up there. I'm in Eastbourne. I have had 9 years of police and council torture. I know we had a long chat, didn't we? And I'm glad that we got to speak. Ian, thank you, Ian. Aston Villa fan, look, non-establishment parties need to unite. Thank you for what you do. Blessings from Birmingham. Thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate that. I think we got to the bottom of the supers yet. No more tonight. Thank you very much. Supers. Over 5,000 messages. Let's have a little look. Let's have a little challenge. See if I can get somewhere at least close to the bottom. Do you know what? These chats that come in, boys, are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
The interaction that we have on this channel, it's like one big massive family. It's brilliant. I love it.
Superb.
I couldn't begin to even start to read them out. There's, where are we? Nearly 6,000 actually. 6,000 messages. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I'm struggling as well.
That guy whose son was, I can't click it. Kevin Bowes is recalling 7 days until Crown Court case, 14 weeks on remand so far. Do you remember his son was on the channel live with me and you, Paul?
Yes.
A veteran lad, and his son was on remand. So, you know, Kevin, keep us informed on that. Let us know what happens. And his son was not pleading guilty. He was, as far as I remember, he was pleading not guilty despite a lot of pressure. So yeah, hope that goes well, mate.
There are a number of things going on in the background and people that I want to speak to, hope to speak to, but they're very sensitive subjects in many respects.
Yeah.
The things that are going on, the very tragic and unfortunate things that are going on in people's lives. And I often invite them to come on and speak, or at least tell me about it. If they got any messages they want to relay, if they need any help, that, you know, we're there for them. But it's very tough for these people because they don't necessarily want to come and show their face to the world and tell their story to thousands and thousands of people. But the main thing is that they know that if they need us, we're here. And I don't necessarily mean for minor, my drains are blocked. You know, we can't do all
We've
stuff
had that
like
before, haven't we?
We've had that. Yeah, we've had that. But you know, if your son, your daughter is due in court, or they're being unfairly treated by the law, you know, we can try and highlight the case.
Listen,
we can try and support them.
Yeah, I think if the case is related to the political situation, we do have a law firm that we can get in touch with through friends that will get them on legal aid and get them a very good barrister on legal aid. So yeah, if anything like as long as it's political, obviously if it's something criminal, you know, that they've done and they're bound to rights. But if it's for speech or, you know, something that's happened at a demo that they haven't done anything violent, we can actually get them representation. You know, so that's if anyone needs that.
Valerie says she'd like to see Richard Tice swap with Ben Habib. Cal says free all political prisoners now. Free Tommy. Absolutely 100% agree with that. Johnny says Starmer is gone. I wish he had, but I think he will be.
There's some interesting comments coming in tonight. I've been reading loads of them tonight, guys.
Yeah.
Some fantastic comments coming in.
There was one about getting me a dinghy. I don't know what that was about.
That's the Bob says they would love putting Nigel in prison. Of course they would. That's what I'm saying. You got to understand that he's in a difficult position.
Yeah.
Esther says, "Well, Paul, you change your tune looking back on lives." Do you know what, Esther? I do sometimes because I lead with my heart or my mouth. You know, in the respect that, look, you're probably talking about the reform issue. When my kids were growing up, if they didn't do well, if they did something wrong, I'd tell them off and I'd be disappointed with them. You know, I'd have a moan and I'd maybe say things that I didn't necessarily mean, oh, you're grounded or whatever, you know. But it didn't mean I didn't still love them. It didn't mean to say I don't want them to do well. I'm disappointed with them because I want the best for them. And when I've dug Farage out in the past, when I've dug out reform in the past, it's not because I want to fall out of them, it's because they've hurt me. It's because I want them to succeed. I want our movement to succeed so much that when someone lets you down, it's very painful. Yeah, that's the way I see it. But I do change my tune. Yeah, I'll admit that. That is one of the, I can do that. I'm entitled to do that.
But that's been flexible, Paul. That's not a bad thing, because if you're just dogmatic about something, if situations change, look, if reform tomorrow, you know, got rid of their chairman, brought Ben in as chairman, you know, allowed our lot to join and allowed Tommy to join, and you know, made a pact with UKIP, then I wouldn't have a problem with Farage or any of them.
Well, one or two out of any of those things would do for me.
You know. So
Paul, can I just bring this up? Someone sent me a message earlier saying, Danny, a big ask, mate. You've got lots of contacts. Is it true that Starmer is bringing in the army to London on the 19th for the farmers' rally? I've said no because I'm pretty sure that's not the case, but I'll just run that by you. Has anyone else heard anything? I can't see.
Not that I've heard. No, not that I've heard. No,
I can't see it.
Yeah,
I didn't think so.
It's not in a million years. Not in a million years. You know.
It's probably another thing that they've let go to try and put people off of going and bits and bobs.
Yeah, I mean, all this stuff about TikTok and a lot of it's just fake news, isn't it? You know, we've got to. Yeah, I mean, if it was true, you know, I'm sure we'd know about it. But no,
Autistic Autumn says perform reform. I think we'll end it on that one because that sums it up beautifully. That's all we want. Perform reform. That'd do me, wouldn't it, you boys?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which means doing all the things that I've said. You know, allowing Tommy to join, allowing get Ben in as chairman. and basically, amalgamate UKIP and start having some proper discussions about serious stuff. Yeah. Then,
or using one word,
as Paul said earlier,
unite.
As you said earlier,
Unite.
Paul, we have got a bit of time. We have got a bit of time.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
We've got
It's
plenty
not as
of
if
time.
the election's next week, It's not as if the election's next week.
I think we need to keep the pressure on. I think we need to keep pushing on the things that are important to us. And, I'm not doing that to be negative, doing that to try and move them, because if they see, let's say, for example, we get 30,000 people joining UKIP. That's going to put reform on the back foot. They're going to be going, okay, what's going on with UKIP here? Why are they getting 30,000 people suddenly joining that could have joined our party? And they'll listen to that and they'll look at that and they'll go away and they'll think about it. And, that's what I want to see happen. I want to see reforming, as Ben said.
Well, what I'm like with my silly football analogies. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we got a team out there. You got a striker. We just bought another one. He's sitting on the bench ready to come on. Puts pressure on your number one, your first choice to score the goals, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that I think that outside pressure is useful, and it's not to destroy anything. It's to actually build stuff, because that's how you build stuff, by putting pressure on people.
Guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. I will hopefully see a lot of you on Tuesday when I will be out supporting British farming. No farmers, no food. Keir Starmer, you wouldn't face the farmers in Wales. I don't suppose you'll be facing them in London, but keep your eyes on the TV, my friend, because I don't think you're going to have a very happy day. Good night. God bless everyone. We'll see you soon.